Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
There you go. A very good evening to you. Welcome to the locker room. A bit later than usual tonight. Basically, what happened was me and Graham failed a fitness test, so we had to do it again, and that's why we're half an hour late. But we're here, settled and ready for the weekend of big sporting action at Hampden Park. All kicks off tomorrow. So we're here until 7 o'clock. All the usual banter and nonsense, and maybe Graham Duffy will crack a joke or two between now and 7 o'clock. Don't forget, you can email. No, you can't. Well, you can email yes if you want, but that's a kind of old way now because people does it on Twitter. Locker Room Indie on Twitter, and yeah, you can email me if you want. It's lockerroomindielive@gmail.com. I do not know if that's the right email address because I've not got it in front of me, so I'm just making it up. So if you've got a bounce back on that email, I'm very sorry about it. I'm getting old and getting on in my Google age. So busy show tonight, Grim. Busy a couple of days, as I said. Two semi-finals coming up. Falkirk against Inverness and Celtic against the old enemy Rangers on Sunday at 1:30 kickoff. We'll be joined by a few guests tonight. They'll be dropping in if technology works out, because it's not working so far. We'll hopefully joined by Tony Haggerty from the Celtic Way, formerly of the Celtic State of Mind. He'll be popping in very soon, hopefully. And just as I say,
yes, as if by magic.
As if by magic, yes.
For those who remember Mr. Ben.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Now, it is Tony Haggerty. It's not like a call centre. We've actually come into and said, hi, can I help you, please? Mr. Tony Haggerty, you all know his background, actually. Did the record, Celtic State of Mind, and now the Celtic Way, joined by Tony, until maybe about 6 o'clock, or just before 6 o'clock, to preview the big game on Sunday. And then after 6 o'clock, we'll preview the big game tomorrow, Falkirk against Inverness at 12:15. So, how are you, Grim?
I'm all right. It's Ross. I'm kind of gutted, though, because semi-final we like, but mine's not in it. So I'm kind of gutted. I don't know what to do with myself now because my team's not there.
Well, you could always watch a decent game tomorrow or Sunday. But I won't tell you what is a decent game out of the two games. Tony might know the answer, but please.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm going tomorrow, gentlemen. I'm going to Carlisle versus Salford tomorrow.
Oh,
yeah, you go.
Wow.
Busman's holiday, day off.
Yeah.
The train down to Carlisle, Salford. It's the big one down in England, so I'm told. So there you go.
I don't know what to speak about now. Tony, the Salford game or the big, the small matter of Rangers and Celtic on Sunday, but let's go for Salford City. So Tony, thanks for popping by for the game on Sunday.
No problem at all.
And it's brilliant to speak to you. Of course, we haven't spoke before. Just over the old DMs for the past 10 years, and
Indeed.
Obviously Mr. Graham Duffy, the Hearts fan as well. Yeah, there's more than Graham Duffy as a Hearts fan.
Good result last week, Graham. Back in the saddle, as they say, after the disappointment of the derby, which I was actually working at for the first time in a long time, not covering a Celtic game, so won't say too much about the result, Graham, but good result last week. Good response from your team.
So let's get into it then, Tony. Instead of dancing about the whole issue for about half an hour, let's get into it. Rangers Celtic Sunday 1:30 at Hampden Park. I take it you'll be working at the game.
Will be, yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. And I just got confirmation about 10 minutes ago that I have a ticket for the game on Sunday. Because up until 10 minutes ago, I wasn't going, but I'm delighted now. I won't tell you what end I'm sitting at. Okay. All I'm saying is it's Leicester Hampden. But let's get into the game now, Tony. The last game at Parkhead, Celtic wasn't at the best. Rangers, they were in Celtic's faces for most of the game, but basically couldn't beat Celtic. Do you think that's going to be the same outcome on Sunday, or do you think it's going to take a different turn because of Jota and Abada and Atati has been training all week?
You get two teams with a different mindset and mentality getting into this, Michael. You've got history chasers and history preventers, haven't you? You know, Rangers are in the last chance saloon, as they say, to try and salvage something from the season. What better way to do it than to beat their rivals in a Scottish Cup semi-final? They did it at the same stage last year, shattered Celtic's treble hopes. But Celtic this year got the bit between the teeth and they're going for an 8th domestic treble, which no club has ever achieved before. You can bet your bottom dollar that they'll never admit it publicly, but privately, that the manager Ange Postecoglou and that set of players won't be satisfied until they achieve that. They will go flat out to try and achieve that, but also so will Rangers, because there's a lot at stake in this one for both sides. Celtic are buoyed by the fact that Jota, Hatate and Abada, pictures of them back in training, and I think the Celtic supporters are feeling confident, quietly confident, because they've had the upper hand in mostly all of the games this season. They've won 3 and drawn 1, and included in that is the League Cup final win. Kyogo scored 5 in his last 3 matches against Rangers, and if he scores on Sunday, he will hit that magical milestone 30 mark for the season. But all of these things said, that doesn't guarantee that Celtic are going to win. And I think in terms of who does it mean more to, I don't think you can split them in that kind of sense. But Rangers have to provide some sort of reaction. They played well against Celtic at Celtic Park when they lost 3-2, but ultimately it wasn't good enough, and they might find in that game that they shot themselves in the foot by making some defensive errors. But again, you could argue the toss that they were forced into those defensive errors by Celtic's play. So depending on what side of that fence you sit on, but it's an intriguing one, isn't it? Again, they always are. But I think it will be... I think I always say with these games, the better team wins. And I think at this moment in time, I don't think anybody would argue that, all being equal, Celtic have a better team with a better squad of players, and I think that will tell in the end. I think Celtic will win again on Sunday. I really do.
Now, you've been going to press conferences for many years. I've got a lot to catch up and you to do. Of course, you're just 21, the same age as me. But when Postecoglou announced today that Atati, Jota and Abada has all trained, and then when I watched Michael Beale's press conference today, it was saying that Goldson, Scott Wright and Ryan Kent has been in training. Now, you know as well as I do, I think they were fit last week for the games.
Yeah, there's all sorts of caddle with managers, isn't there? They try and kind of psych you out, or just kind of, preemptive strikes, stuff like that. You will find out the teams with 75 minutes to go before kickoff. You can speculate and conjecture all you want, but the players that are named in the starting lineup will appear, as I say, an hour and 15 minutes before kickoff. You can have your thoughts on various matters, who you think will play, who won't play, might have no bearing at all to what actually happens. Lots of managers try and swerve those kind of questions. They very rarely say, such and such is fit and will play, because they don't want to give anything away. I don't think any manager would want to give anything away ahead of this game, either Michael Beale or Ange Postecoglou. But you try and read between the lines and connect dots, and I think Celtic supporters are looking forward to or are excited by the fact that Jota, Rio Hatate, and Abada all trained. Whether all three will start is another matter entirely. But as we do on the Celtic way, we predict the 11 before every game. So Hatate's in my starting 11. So no plot in terms of plot spoilers. There you go. So that shows you the way I'm thinking. Whether it's the way Ange Postecoglou's thinking, I don't know. But my thoughts are that when Rio Hatate got injured or limped off in the game that he did, I think Ange Postecoglou set him a target to get himself fit for the semi-final, April the 30th. He's naturally fit boy anyway. So lots of people saying, he's not played in 3 or 4 games. I actually don't think that matters because I think and if he's thrown in, I don't even think it's a case of thrown in. He'll be selected because he's one of the players that could arguably be the player of the year, depending on how you think about these things. So second nature to him. He set up the second goal for Kyogo, which was the vital difference in the League Cup final. He knows the terrain, so you're not asking him to do something that's alien to his nature. People talk about match fitness and all that, but these players are natural athletes. They're naturally fit. So I'm expecting to see Rio Hatate start on Sunday. Whether he does or not, then it's up to Ange Postecoglou to make an absolute mug out of me then, isn't it, Michael?
I was just going to say before Bryn Robbie and Graham as well, it's kind of like changed days when you go to the press conferences as we do, Tony, because I remember years ago that Samaras was kind of saying, we'll go to Ibrox and we'll win and we'll dominate the game, and Celtic get beaten. They were absolutely horrible that day. I know Rangers has been kind of like opening their mouth in terms of the gap's actually getting closer. I mean, obviously the gaps. What is the gap? And all that. But in terms of Postecoglou and this team, they're kind of like playing it down as if to say, well, it's going to be a very difficult game, but it's the opposite from the Rangers side. So do you think it's kind of like changed days in terms of maybe when Neil Lennon was there to Postecoglou and to Michael Beale as well? Because Michael Beale opens his mouth, and I think sometimes he embarrasses the Rangers fans, like what he's saying.
I don't think there's anything wrong with talking up your team, and Robbie will back me up in this. If the gap's not that big on Sunday, prove it. Prove it. You've got an ideal opportunity to prove it against your rivals, a team that you haven't beaten in 4 contests this season. So you can do all the talking you want, but it's the old Glasgow saying, isn't it? It's no saying it, it's doing it, isn't it? So, and Hampden is the stage where if you're Celtic or Rangers, do it. Go and do it on that stage. And all the pre-match talk, and players and managers can say what they like. It has before a game, it has no bearing on what actually happens once the players cross the white line. Whether it's bravado, whether you're trying to G players up, it doesn't really matter. You can issue battle cries, rallying cries. Once you're on the pitch, it's up. In Michael Beale's sense, it's up to his players to carry out his instructions, and it's up to Ange Postecoglou's players to carry out his instructions when they're on the field. And it's showbiz. It's like boxers, isn't it? Trying to drum up pay-per-view punters. By going in the head-to-head. Say what you like. The event will be the event. And if you're Rangers, you've got the ideal opportunity to, as I said at the top of the programme, to shatter Celtic's bid for an 8th historic treble and shatter it, just Celtic going for a clean sweep again, which they did successfully last year after extra time when they were under the cosh for a bit, but came back into and finished the stronger of the two sides, having played in that midweek in Europe. So, I'm always of the opinion, respect your opponent. You earn the right to win football matches. You can say this and that's going to happen, but you can't really say it with any degree of certainty. You're predicting, aren't you? Basically, but what Rangers players or Celtic players say, I don't really pay too much attention to it. I listen, obviously, because it's the medium of mode of your employment. But I always think that players never really learn. Sometimes, do they? And but you respect everybody, and you play the straight bat. Every game's a hard game. It's a different challenge. That's it. And against your rivals, your main rivals, it's going to be the hardest of games, isn't it?
Robbie, I'm going to bring you in here because it's a bit ironic, because when both teams go into any kind of league game or semi-final or final, they actually get a good result before the game. And obviously, we knew what happened last week to Rangers. They went up to Aberdeen, and that. I thought it was a game of two halves, actually. I thought Rangers competed well for like 45 minutes, and basically they collapsed in the second half. And then the day before, Celtic dropped points at home. If it wasn't for O's chance, I think Celtic would have walked away with 3 points. But it's a bit ironic how both teams in the same weekend dropped points.
Yeah, Michael, it doesn't happen very often when the Glasgow pair only pick up 1 point out of 6 at a weekend, and especially with Rangers coming up to my beloved Aberdeen, and after 7 years, Aberdeen actually got a victory over them. And I don't think the outcry from Rangers supporters has been lost yet, and that's nearly a week since. I've seen in the Daily Record hotline folk calling for Michael Beale's head already if they lose to Celtic at the weekend. So I think the stakes are high because they lost, obviously, in the league. The Celtic lost to Aberdeen, and then if they don't win at the weekend and Celtic get another treble, I think I'll be right among the Ibrox faithful. So yeah, as you say, it's not ideal for either side going into this game without that momentum of a victory, but an Old Firm or Glasgow derby, whatever way you want to look at it, it really takes care of itself on the pitch, because, and I think it's a good factor of, obviously there was no away fans last time the teams met. This time it'll be a 50-50 split, so don't know how much that plays its part. I've seen talk from both sets of players in the past saying, oh, you just have to drown it out regardless, but I think it'll just make it for a good spectacle, hopefully, for the Scottish game, and whoever wins will obviously fancy themselves to win the final, and that can have a knock-on effect for the team, which in moments Aberdeen's case, in third, because if one of Celtic or Rangers win the Scottish Cup, they would get a £5 million windfall. So I think a lot of people will be looking in with keen eyes on this game on Sunday.
And Graham, just touching upon the game last week, obviously, out of the two teams, would you say Rangers would be a bit kind of more disappointed than Celtic not to pick anything up in terms of the league? Obviously, we knew weeks ago that the league was kind of like over, basically, not mathematically impossible, but like in terms of Rangers going up to Piccoli, they would have wanted to pick up all 3 points. So do you think looking back at last weekend, that was a decent point for Celtic at home?
I mean, nobody was more gutted than I was, because that Rangers result meant our Hearts were still 5 points behind, so I was gutted at that. But yeah, I mean, dreadful last week. Aberdeen were fantastic. They have to win the game. I know that the first goal was a bit of a lucky goal. I know that Scale said he meant that. Aye, right, and I'm Stevie Wonder. But no, it was a great win. And yeah, I think Rangers will be disappointed that they didn't win that game, and they were very poor. I watched the Celtic game, and they had a lot of possession, and I thought it was a game they probably would have won. Kevin Van Veen, fantastic goal, and Celtic missed a lot of chances. But I said weeks ago that I think Celtic win the treble. They're just far too strong. They've got a far, far stronger team than Rangers. Their bench is far stronger than Rangers. They just have a far, far stronger team. And I've said for weeks, Celtic win the treble. I've got no doubt about that at all. And I think for me, you can go through, I've said before, you can go through that whole Celtic team. They've got such a fantastic side. That midfield, Hatate, McGregor, O'Reilly, it's a brilliant, brilliant side. And even then, when you take Hatate out, I actually think Iwata's actually looked a decent player. But again, I wanted to ask as well, and again, this is not to blow smoke up Tony here, but I'm a massive fan of Tony. I've been on Twitter with him a few times, and he's a really good guy as well. But I just think for him, that's all right. I just wanted to ask Tony his opinion, because when Juranovic left Celtic, the question about who would replace him, and I've said this in the group chat, I think Alistair outstanding. And I thought the last game, Celtic Rangers, and I put in the group chat at the time, I thought Johnson was the best player in that park. Have you been surprised at just how well Alistair Johnson played since he's come in? Because I think he's been outstanding whenever I've seen him.
When he was flagged up on the radar just before the World Cup finals, you watched him for Canada and you thought there's a player there, but he just hit the ground running. Made his debut at Ibrox. He'd one mistake because he stood off Kent. Kent curls it into the top corner. That apart, I can't remember another mistake that he's made. And like you, it's a massive upgrade on Juranovic. I thought Juranovic was a good player, decent. That's all. When people were talking he was going to leave for 25 million, I was like, that you're living in a parallel universe. You know, I just couldn't understand that these valuations that Celtic players were putting on their players. And I know, the self-proclaimed greatest fans in the world love their players and get attached to them, but that evaluation of Juranovic was just wide of the mark in mine. And I took a lot of stick on Twitter for saying he would move for somewhere. I said that 12 million got you a seat at the table to talk, and as it turns out, he left for somewhere around about that, didn't he? So, not being wise after the event, but I did take a wee bit of stick. But it's just the way you call things and you see things. But I agree with you. I think Alistair Johnson's been a terrific fit for Celtic, and just the way the team plays, and he has hit the ground running, and the Celtic supporters again love him. He's a cult hero already, and but I agree with you. I don't think you could fault anything in his game so far, and most people are delighted. The most Celtic supporters are delighted that they've quickly forgotten about Juranovic. Let's put it that way, and to come in January and make the Celtic supporters do that up until now just shows you the way the team's been playing. And to touch upon your strength and depth, we've spoken about that on the podcast for long and weary, do a daily podcast, and that strength and depth, and it is frightening. And you touched upon the fact that Iwata could come in if Hatate doesn't play. Doesn't weaken the Celtic side in any shape or form, does it?
No.
And it's a great luxury that Celtic have, that they have a real quality side rammed full of star players who can affect a game, win a game, change a game, whether you're playing 60 minutes or 30 minutes. And it can be, I can only imagine it can be demoralising for opposition teams and supporters of opposition teams. But they went through a spell where they were pulverising teams, and that's hard to play against. And that whole we never stop mentality that Ange has built into that team, you can see that manifesting itself in the way the team's set up, the philosophy, the style, and the way the players play. And somebody who's grasped the nettle on that right away is Alistair Johnston. And I think his ice hockey background helps him too, because I've said before, he tackles opponents as if he's kicking them into imaginary plexiglass, doesn't he? So I've made a point of saying that. If you're familiar with the old Paul Newman film Slapshot, you'll know what I'm talking about with that one. If not, go and check it out. You'll see what I mean. But, so I think in terms of the scouting system as well, that Celtic brought him in just before the World Cup really kicked off and people could actually get to see how good a player he was, but Celtic had conducted that piece of business. So I think it was a shrewd move, and not wait until after the World Cup for maybe the protracted transfer to drag on. So I was quite impressed by that. But it just seems at this minute in time, Celtic and Ange Postecoglou, both on and off the field, can do no wrong. Doesn't guarantee a treble, as Graham says, but I think Celtic are in the best possible shape going into Sunday, aren't they, to try and achieve that kind of aim.
Tony, give us a couple of questions before you go, and we'll get into Postecoglou's quote from the press conference in a minute. But looking back over Celtic's team over the years, I'm talking about Brendan Rodgers, Martin O'Neill, Neil Lennon, and you can go further back.
I can, yeah.
Than that. Well, I didn't want to say to you because I want you to come back on the show, Tony. But what you were saying there about kind of like Rio Atai and Jota and Abada, and I've said this to the guys on the show that over the past couple of weeks and the past couple of months, they don't really know when somebody kind of drops out the team through injury or suspension, because a player would come in from out the cold and does the same job. I mean, perfect example is Greg Taylor. I mean, if you ask any Celtic fans last season, they wouldn't have bothered. 2 seasons ago, they wouldn't have bothered if he moved on or whatever. But he's a new player now. And I kind of put that down to Postecoglou's man management as well.
I put it down to 2 things. I put it down to Taylor's attitude as well. Postecoglou's spoken very highly of Greg, saying he wants to be the best he can be, and he's in that inverted fullback role, which Greg Taylor was a midfielder to trade, so it's not alien to his nature. So he's not asking him to do something that's not within his capabilities. But he's shown how very good he is at it, and what he lacks in height, that's probably the only thing that you could label at him. He's not very big, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Because what an engine he's got, what an eye for a pass, and he just suited that inverted full-back role in the way Ange Postecoglou wants to play. And yeah, he wasn't a favourite of the Celtic supporters, but he is now. He's a mainstay of that team, and he's one of the first picks in that team. You're shaking your head there, Robbie, in agreement, but the amount of times he plays that pass inside the fullback to the wingers or attackers, the Kyogo, he finds him as well. So I just think that everybody, Ange Postecoglou's talked about it all the time, he's just got that buy-in, hasn't he? From everybody, from the board to the players to the supporters. And at this moment, it's not hard to see why Celtic are kind of riding the crest of a wave. Nothing lasts forever, as they say, but I think Celtic supporters are certainly enjoying this period, and it's no surprise that they're looking at it fondly with the green tinted specs on and saying that it's reminiscent of Brendan Rodgers' teams, Martin O'Neill's teams, and even people who can go further back than myself. There are older people than myself who support Celtic out there, talk about Jock Stein's teams, and I think it's the joy that those teams brought people by scoring goals, what the game's all about, and entertaining. And some of it is hyperbole. They're maybe getting carried away, but I just think that if you're allowed to dream as a football supporter, aren't you? You're allowed to talk your team up. So when you see something wonderful like Robbie saw last week, first win against Rangers in 7 years, you're inclined to haver about it and go overboard, aren't you? But it's allowed, football fans are the eternal dreamers. I'm the biggest dreamer out there,
We can be the most fickle, but we can enjoy it the most when
of
it actually
course, aye.
happens.
So, see if you can't enjoy the good times, then you're in the wrong game. And I think Celtic supporters are just enjoying these good times. But again, all of that doesn't equate to winning on Sunday. Go on, Graham, sorry.
Michael, see how you talked about Greg Taylor as well? No, I was going to say Greg Taylor as well. I was going to mention as well, at the start of the season, you also had Anthony Ralston, who a lot of Celtic fans probably thought was on the way out. But then he started to look really good. And now he can't get a game because Alistair Johnson's playing well. So there's another issue you've got as well, that Anthony Ralston can't get a game yet. He started the season really, really well.
And Anthony Ralston would walk into most 11s of any of the other Premiership teams, wouldn't he, Graham and Robbie?
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah, that might maybe. Yeah, I think he would.
No, as you say, the strength and depth Celtic have got. When you think about guys like James McCarthy, who's playing in the English Premier League and is just totally out the picture. So I find it absolutely mind-boggling that Celtic's strength and depth. So yeah, absolutely.
I think they've also locked out the fact that they had a manager who knew a market, i.e. the Asian market, and he's brought the contingent of Japanese players, Kyogo, Hatate, Kobayashi, Maeda and Iwata, and they're all doing so well. and it's having that knowledge, isn't it? People call it local knowledge, I guess. So he had local knowledge of the J League because he'd managed in it, and he knew fine well these players would be a fit for Celtic. And if any other manager had done that, you would have seen he's taken leave of his senses. But they trusted him because he managed in that league, and it's bore fruit, hasn't it? And it's now a lots of kind of blazing a trail for other players to come over and other teams to have a look at the J League players, because you can get them for bargain prices. And I don't think Celtic have shelled out, with the exception of Kyogo. I think it was $4.5 million. The rest have come at very affordable prices, not just for Celtic, but for other clubs who, if they wanted to go into that market, would could reap the rewards. Let's put it that way.
I was just going to say, I said one last question. I said one last question about 10 minutes ago, Tony, but I've got one question before you go out. You go away, actually. I think, now I've said this on the show millions of times as well, but when you think of like Brendan Rodgers and Martin O'Neill and Neil Lennon and other managers coming in, they're always going to what you would say the obvious market, like Spain, Germany, England. But I think that the difference with Postecoglou, and I don't know if you would agree with me here, Tony, that Postecoglou goes into the market kind of like outside the box, if you know what I mean, or outside the bubble of the football kind of hemisphere. Why did I say that word? Because I can't even pronounce it. But there you go. You know what I mean, Tony?
Well, I would have thought that the J League would be Angie's obvious market, because he'd managed there for a while and he'd won the title. So he knew exactly the players that were there. I mean, Iwata signed for Celtic as the J League Player of the Year. Ange had signed him twice. So he clearly rated him and he knew he could do a job. Didn't manage Furuhashi because he played for Vissel Kobe, but knew of him. So I think managers choose markets that they're comfortable with. I think Ange was very comfortable with the Japanese market or Asian market, knew exactly what he was getting, which is why he went back to the J League to bring in that plethora of players and to get Celtic off on a sound footing, because he knew what they would provide and he would get them up and running. And I think that's proved to be the case. I mean, obviously he signed other players from other leagues, but he's referenced that he brings in people. And in the Japanese culture, people is very important. The way people conduct themselves, even footballers, with humility and all that kind of stuff. And he's spoken about that at great length. So that's a big thing for him, bringing in the right people, not just footballers, but the right people for the culture and the environment that he's set up at Celtic. And it's so far so good. And I think that's why the Celtic supporters are enjoying it so much. But again, I'll stress, on Sunday, all of that will have no bearing. You have two teams going for it. And as I said earlier, I think the best team usually wins these games. Sometimes that doesn't turn out to be the case. But as Graham alluded to and Robbie was saying as well, I think most people fancy Celtic strongly on Sunday, just on what their eyes are telling them. Whether that proves to be the case, I'll come back on gladly if I get it wrong and hold my hands up, saying, "Oh, there you go."
Just before we go, Andrew said, Postecoglou said today at his press conference, "We're looking forward to the game. They've always been memorable occasions." Obviously, he was talking about Hamden there, but it's up to us to get to the next stage. It's going to be a good atmosphere, because Robbie was saying, obviously, it's a 50-50 split by the supporters. He then goes on to say, but we need to do our bit and win, and we expect Rangers to be up for the game. They have good players, because they cause us problems. But it's up to us to play our football on the day. as I say, Greal, Tatty, Jotty, and Abada is all fit. Just before you go, Tony, obviously you would want to hear from your pal Michael Beale. He said it is a huge game. We know that, but it would be nice to get back to the final again. But we need to perform well, perform better. We've been disappointed the way it went against them. But we have 2 more opportunities to see how it goes. Celtic are a good team, so we need to be at our best. And obviously, I told you earlier on that Connor Goldson, Scott Wright, and Ryan Kent is all trained, and they'll. He says we'll wait and see how they are, but obviously you'll take that as a given that they'll be playing on Sunday. So, Tony, I'm going to put you on the fence here. Hey. What do you think the score will be on Sunday?
We do predictions every day or every weekend. So I nailed my cards to the mast and I said it would be 3-1 to Celtic. So there you go.
Cool.
That's my fearless verdict, as they say. But no doubt, come Sunday, it'll be proven absolutely and horrendously wrong. But hey, that's my prediction. So we'll see what happens.
So Tony, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure.
I know you've got a big game tomorrow, Salford, and a small game on Sunday up at Hampden.
Yeah.
So
no worries.
See you soon.
Thanks very much. Yeah, indeed. Graham, thanks a lot for your kind comments. I appreciate that. Lovely to talk to you, Robbie, as well. And I'll see you.
Yeah,
see you some other time, guys. Take it easy.
See you later, pal.
Cheers. Ta-da.
See you later, mate. See you later.
There you go. That was Tony Haggerty from the Celtic Way talking about the game on Sunday. And if by magic, we're now joined by the the first semi-final kicking off tomorrow. We have got Aaron Risch. He is a Falkirk fan joining us tonight. So thanks for joining us on the show, Aaron.
Aye, I'm good. Cheers for having me on. I'm over in Stornoway just now, so I'm not going to make the game, unfortunately. But I'm looking forward to watching it tomorrow on the TV.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. Obviously, it's a big game for. Well, I suppose it's a big day for Scottish football. Like 2 championships teams making the semi-final tomorrow, Falkirk and Inverness. Just to tell people, 12:15 kick-off tomorrow. You can see the game on BBC and Viaplay tomorrow as well. Obviously, we've not saw a lot of Falkirk this season. We've seen them in the cup a few times on the TV. How have they been performing?
So we've obviously got a new manager for the season, John McGlynn, and he's obviously taken Wraith out of the league before, so he's a man with vast experience at higher levels, and he's implemented a system of play that he's got us moving the ball on the ground from back to front quicker. It's not worked every game of the season, but we've performed much better. Obviously, over the last couple of seasons, I think we've been 6th. We've missed out in the playoffs in the last 8 Montrose a couple of years ago. And we've got 2nd in the bag now, so we've obviously progressed. Not as quickly as we'd have liked, obviously, with Dunfermline in the league, a big club as well. So it's been a challenge trying to win this league. So we're going to have to fight hard through the playoffs. But we're playing better. We've had patches of form. Obviously, with the kind of form that's got us to this cup semi-final. But we've also missed chances and struggled in parts of the season. And made silly mistakes that has cost us in big games. Went through a run of games as well recently where we weren't scoring, but obviously we're back to scoring ways now. We're 4-1 win, and obviously a couple of goals against Dunfermline. So getting better. Good to get a win right before the semi-final, but there's a lot of improvements to be made.
Robbie, obviously, I should have actually went to Graham before I came to you about the Scottish Cup because it's not your favourite subject this season. But what does it say about Scottish football? Because you've got a championship team and a League One team in the semi-final of the major competition this year.
I think it just shows there's opportunities for these lower league teams to progress and get that much coveted day out at Hampden. And I was just seeing Falkirk have announced after a tremendous last day of ticket sales, we're delighted to announce we have smashed the 8,750 mark. So nearly 10,000 tickets of Bairns going to Hampden tomorrow. So Alan will probably know better than me, but I know Falkirk do get quite a decent crowd at times at Falkirk Stadium, but to get that Hampden, it just shows that everyone's buying into that big occasion and probably can believe on the day that anyone can beat anyone and not fear Inverness too much, I'm guessing.
No, you're absolutely right. I think Falkirk put on a lot of. Obviously, we've had our issues with the board. There's been a lot going on in the background, well documented, to the laugh of everybody else in Scottish football over the last couple of years. But this year, with the changes we've had, and obviously the new management, the team performing better, and there's a lot of great initiatives. So what we've done is we've run free buses through the club for supporters to get there. And there's also been loads of initiatives through sort of things like the Falkirk Daft podcast, tickets being made available to fans who otherwise couldn't afford them. So there's been an effort made to get more Bairns to the stadium. We're much closer than you guys up in Inverness. We can get there, we can leave the house at 11 o'clock and make the kickoff. You guys are having to leave dead early in the morning, which is obviously a massive challenge. So I think you guys have made maybe 3,000. If that's the latest I heard, 3,000 tickets. So a good crowd coming down for Inverness given the circumstances.
Yeah, and obviously we would have to speak about VAR because I know that's Graham's favourite subject, but it's a first kind of taste of VAR that Falkirk and Inverness will use at Hampden tomorrow. So I hate to ask you this question, but are you looking forward to it?
You repeat that again?
Yeah. No, I was just saying VR is the first time getting used tomorrow.
Oh, aye.
So are you looking forward to it?
I mean, probably no is the answer. Because everybody else has. I mean, we're quite lucky in League One. We've not had to deal with this. I mean, I've been at the Scotland games. And Scotland have benefited, particularly the goal for against Israel. And you can get the good end of VAR, but the amount of dodgy decisions you've seen. The answer's no. No, you want raw football. Just if it's if it's an error, it's an error. I mean, we need every chance we can get. Inverness are the club in the Championship League above. So, I mean, I'm hoping if we can get a hand of God, I don't want that to get reviewed.
Yeah, no, exactly. And as for kind of Inverness, Graham, obviously they're kind of outside the playoffs, you would say, but it's quite a difficult job for them to make the playoffs now, you would say. But they're quite a good cup team, Inverness.
Yeah, they are. And I mean, no disrespect to Inverness, if any Inverness fans are watching this, but it's a bit weird that they're in the semi-final when they were knocked out 3 rounds ago. And if it hadn't been for Queen's Park making an administrative error, they wouldn't be in this position in the first place. But listen, fair play to them. That was Queen's Park's mistake, fair enough. But you know, Inverness, I think Billy Dawes done a good job. They'll be they probably are favourites for tomorrow, but as we all know, favourites can get beat. I think it'll be a very, very interesting game tomorrow. I mean, Inverness players Falkirk. You know, I'm a massive fan of Callum Morrison, ex-Jambo. I think Cole Donaldson's a good player. Brad Mackay, they've got a lot. Kai Kennedy, a lot of really good players in that Falkirk team. So it will be a difficult game tomorrow. And one thing that I want, I mean, I'm not an Inverness or Falkirk fan, but I wouldn't want a game being decided by VAR. That would just be an absolute horrendous. You know, you want it to be, a case of one team's better than the other one. That's what you want. You don't want it to be decided by a really poor VAR decision. That's my worry for tomorrow. It should be a decent game, I think. Hopefully a decent crowd, but I wanted to ask Alan, are you kind of big players for Falkirk tomorrow? Who are, if you're going to win the game tomorrow, that's going to be the kind of deciding tomorrow? Is that like Callum Morrison, Kai Kennedy?
Absolutely. So, if you're looking at the players that are in form, Kai Kennedy's got 5 and 5, and he scored wonderful free kicks. You all probably saw the goal against Ayr. He scored a header recently as well, so he's really found his form. It's a big pitch at Hampden, so our wingers and your Morrisons, your Nesbitts. We've also got a guy on loan for St Johnstone who I didn't understand. St Johnstone must be full of messes in the middle of the park, because Kucheravi should be starting for them. He's absolutely quality, young lad, and he's been brilliant for Falkirk, so he's going to be the main sort of ball player in the middle of the park. But our forward players, I mean, we've got Burrell. It depends how he plays up front, because if he sticks one up front, we'll be concerned. If he goes with two, then I'm really excited to see how we get on. We've got loads of goal scorers. We've obviously signed Alan from Clyde midway through the season. He's not really hit the ground running yet for us, but I mean, he's coming to a side who are scoring goals, so it's challenging. But he's got goals in him. Burrell's been scoring the last few games. We've got inside knowledge. We've got Cole Donaldson and we've got Brad Mackay, so they'll be getting us a lowdown on that Inverness side. Very recent Inverness experience.
Alan, from a Falkirk fan's point of view, obviously this is your first semi-final from a repeat of the 2015 Showpiece final. As a Falkirk fan, that would seem years ago. How nice is it for Falkirk to go back to the National Stadium in front of the TV cameras to play a big game, knowing that you're one game away from facing Celtic or Rangers in the final?
Absolutely massive. Obviously, we've been lucky. We had unlucky. We had the 2009 final against Rangers, tight game. Hit the bar. Obviously lost 1-0 in that game, so that was a good trip to Hampden until the result. But then we've also the game against Inverness in 2015. A game, by all accounts, as soon as the second half happened, we should have won. Obviously they went into 10 men. It was euphoria in that second half. The momentum felt like it was only going one way, and then sucker punched with a dodgy McDonald parry out and a goal for the Inverness forward. So it was. So I mean, to get back there, given everything that we've gone through, relegation a couple of times, and just the sort of bad feeling for a wee while around the club, just to show that we're still there and punching. And then also for both of the teams, we're both there with nothing to lose. We've both got playoffs coming up, so we'll obviously try and get promoted through the League One playoffs. Inverness, the form that they're in, with the run they've made, trying to get into the Premier League. So it's both clubs. It's almost just a bonus.
Let's look for your manager.
Sorry, Mike.
Oh, sorry, Glenn.
Sorry, Mike. I was just going to ask Alan. At the start of the season, Alan, what was your expectation from Falkirk this season? Was it to get promoted, or you couldn't have dreamed of a cup run? But what was your expectation as a Falkirk fan at the start of the season?
It's difficult because you're always going to say promotion. I mean, given we signed John McGlynn, and then the players we brought in, you were obviously getting Stephen McGinn as well, like big players, and you're thinking there's only one up. Finland showed us, which is a pity, through scrappy games, but they've done it. So, we hope for promotion. It's not quite happened, but second place is the next best thing, and to get a cup semi-final along with that. And just get the wee bits of it. Like we've applied for a UEFA license, as all the clubs that are in the semi-final have done. TV money, you get a couple of 100,000. So our pitch is up for renewal, so they'll be able to do that with the money. There's loads that we've been able to do with this cup run. Add the coverage on TV, add getting a chance to play Darvel. Everybody wanted Darvel to win. There's a lot of sort of good feeling around the club now. So I didn't get the automatic promotion, but we're still fighting for that.
I was going to say don't mention Darvel to Robbie, but
I know I was there that night.
Let's look for John McGlynn's before the game. He was speaking to the Scottish FA website. He says it's a massive opportunity to get, I think, to a Scottish Cup final. I'm now 61, but I'm still ambitious. We know when it will happen again. Stephen McGinn and others are coming to the end of their careers, possibly. Who knows, when you're going into a semi-final with a good opportunity to get to a final, you really, really got to grab this opportunity with both hands and make sure you don't leave anything on the park. Do you think that's fair comment, Alan, by John McGlynn?
Yeah, no, it is, and he's been like that all season. But he's a good motivator, John McGlynn, and he's got. I mean, he's guilty of maybe if he's saying leave it all out there, he needs to play his most attacking team. If he says that and then puts one up front, then he's not really backing what he's saying. But he is. I've got this hope that he's got this grand master plan that he's been playing this one up top, making odd selections and stuff, losing games maybe shouldn't have, but it's all just to catch shoot Billy Dodds and get us a win against Inverness. So one big grand plan to win the cup.
Yeah, no, exactly. So thanks for coming on the show. You've been brilliant making your debut, and hopefully we'll get you back on in the final when you're coming up against either Rangers or Celtic on Sunday. So thanks for coming on the show, Alan. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And we'll speak to you soon.
Aye, cheers guys, cheers Graham, Michael and Robbie. It was good to speak to you, and best of luck for all yous in the final, the semi-final. Sorry,
good
cheers.
Luck, mate. Good luck, mate. Nice to speak to you.
There we go. That's
right now. It's just. Sorry, Michael. I know you're going to go now that we've just got the. I want to ask Rob to ask you, mate. What's your decision on the VAR decision, but not for Aberdeen? I have to ask you.
No, the fact that there's no consistency at the moment within Scottish football in terms of the technology and what the SFA panels deem frivolous is just baffling, to be honest, Graham. Like, I don't think either that Jago or Shinnie challenges should have been red cards. That's my point of view. I've seen other people on Twitter say that the Shinnie one was a blatant red card, but even though if it was, he shouldn't have had another game added on. So personal view is they need to get everyone in a room and agree what the precedence is for each, I guess, decision, and why we're not getting consistency, I don't know. Because you look at Nicky Clark, he got his red card overturned for similar early in the season as well, and it just felt like Aberdeen were really victimised. And I don't like to play that victim, pity card, but I was really glad to see Aberdeen go out all guns blazing, really, with statements and everything, calling out the SFA for a bit of a reform, because just doesn't seem right. And I would say that if I can stick up at any other team if that incident happened, not just my own.
Well, we're going to come back to Hearts and Aberdeen because I want to talk about the TV. It's my favourite subject, Graham. We always do it every week. And that's when I get on my soapbox, and I know Mr. Duffy loves talking about Sky Sports. So we'll come back to that. But just finish up on the Falkirk Inverness game tomorrow. The quote from Billy Dodds' press conference was as a great opportunity for us, but Falkirk will be thinking the exact same, but we go in there with high hopes, and I have a full squad. And Robbie, when they said I have a full squad, he kind of laughed a wee bit, a bit like what I was saying to Tony Haggerty when I was on, because obviously Postecoglou was saying last week about a Bagger, Jota and Atai was out the game last week, and Michael Beale was saying about Scott Wright was out the game for Rangers, Conor Golson and Ryan Kent. I think they were playing mind games with maybe the opposite supporters, but also the media as well, because I think they were fit and ready to go from last week. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. You hit the nail on the head. I reckon so. I was going to kind of chime in when Tony was on, saying similar that Celtic know they're so comfortable and ahead in the league. They're way to be runaway champions. So they will have had one eye on this game. The media has been speaking about this game for weeks. The players will have had one eye on it, knowing that they're one game away from a treble. So I think, yeah, guys like Hatate, Abada and Jota, they probably have been fit enough if you needed them. Say they'd been playing Rangers last week, I'm sure they would have played, but to keep them 100% fresh is probably a sensible thing to do. And even drawing against Motherwell, it's not the worst result in the world. And Motherwell, give them the credit, they played really well. I watched it. And in terms of Billy Dodds, Michael, I think he's probably the same. Maybe they've had, I know back at the start of the year, he had a massive injury crisis and they got denied returning players from Highland League teams and all sorts. But if he's laughing about saying he's got a full squad, I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve as well. And I think that's why it's got to make a really good spectacle. And I think it's probably not much will separate a League One and top of League One and Championship side, because between the divisions, we've seen that before. Teams go down, then go up and do well. So it'd be certainly interesting to watch. Because look at Queen's Park, they was promoted last season and they're flying, could win the league this weekend. So very exciting.
Graham, put you on the spot here because you're not interested again. Hearts is out now. But who will be in the final? I'm not talking about American Idol, by the way, just in case.
I think we're talking about I'm a Celebrity South Africa there. I'm quite enjoying that because Sean Ryder's on it. I say I just think they might have a little bit too much, but listen, Falkirk have had a good season. There's no doubt about it, a very good season. But I just think that Inverness, I think they might have a bit too much. So I've already said I think Inverness Celtic final, but I just hope it's a good game. And I don't know what the attendance is going to be like tomorrow. Hope it's a decent crowd. Folk had talked before. The neutrals, they were going to go to the game, but then they saw the ticket prices and it put them off. And again, I understand that because for me, final, but for me, they should easily have made like Inverness Falkirk like 20-25 folk to go, but it's like over 30 quid. It's a lot of money for a semi-hand. I just think that is a bit daft, but hopefully it's a good game. But I do have a feeling that Inverness might just sneak it. But you know what? I'm talking Falkirk there. You know, really talk well about them. So there's every chance Falkirk could win. But I just have a feeling that Inverness will sneak it. I think it'll be Inverness against Celtic in the final.
Yeah, £38 for both games this weekend. Robbie, what's your final two in the final?
Yeah, well, I did want to note the fact, I didn't want to say it to a guest, but Falkirk have won just twice in 8 league games since being Ayr United in the quarterfinals. So I think I was going to say that about being a bit of stuttering for him, but on a one-off game, obviously, you just don't know. But Inverness, they have surged into the playoffs in the last few weeks, 6 wins and a draw in the last 7 games. So I've got to back them in Celtic as well to make up the final. I just think both of them will have enough in each of the respective games to progress and be at the showpiece final at the end of the month or start of next month.
Okay, I'm going to go the opposite way. Well, not the opposite way, a different way.
For Rangers Inverness.
Yeah. How did you guess, Graham? I'm so predictable, aren't I? No, I will go for Celtic and Falkirk in the final. Just because, well, the game's not at Ibrox for the final, because we all know what I'm back in the days of the Coca-Cola Cup final. Robbie might be a bit young to remember that one, but sadly, me and Graham.
I think the only Coca-Cola Cup final memory I have is Stephen Glass with a bike, but I can't tell you any more than that.
Well, now you've got to tell us now, Robbie, that the thing about in this show is you can't start a story and finish it there. But as I say, typical journalist claim. I don't even do that. but you can tell us at 7:00, right? Just before we go on to speak about the championship, I wanted your guys' take on the post-split fixtures. There's been a lot of talk this week about Sky not covering the full allocation of games. Now, one of the games I wanted to see, not because as a Hearts fan and an Aberdeen fan here, I wanted to see that game, but they're not showing that game, and also they're not showing the bottom 6 games. So what's your views on Sky not just covering Celtic and Rangers games after the split?
Who do you want to go first? Me or okay.
Yeah.
I'll go.
The youngest first.
My personal view, Michael, is I understand why Sky prioritise Celtic and Rangers, because as someone that works in a media company myself, I don't think I realised how much they're driven by targets and clicks and views and things like that. So from that perspective, I understand it. From a consumer's perspective, I think it's absolutely awful, because we all know Celtic have got that title wrapped up. We all know Rangers have really got nothing to play for. So to show Rangers v Hibs, of all teams who are very unlikely to get third place and be in that battle, is really strange. And you've seen today alone, Dundee United, St Mirren and Aberdeen all selling out their allocations for games over a week away already. So that's showing us an appetite. There's got to be good crowds at some of these games. And obviously there's a TV blackout, but Graham might know better than me. The Hearts Aberdeen game has just been moved to a 12:30 kickoff. Thank you, Beyonce. But it's been moved to an early kickoff. So that might mean that Hearts will show a pay-per-view. I'm not sure, but I hope they do. So it's not a total blackout. But I'm assuming we can all agree that Sky, I'm not sure if BT was even too much better with showing like games that was non-old firm, but I think they at least gave it a bit more contempt than they're getting at the moment, because there doesn't seem to be enough clips or buzz on social media from Sky unless it's press conferences from the top 2 teams.
And Graham, from a Hearts Hibs point of view, that game's not been shown. I did kind of tell you weeks ago that you were only going to see one game at the Derby, and that was at the beginning of our season. By the way, I must caveat and say that they done that to Dundee United and Dundee when they were in the top division. They only showed one game at Tannadice when the both of them were in the top flight. So a bit disappointing again for the obviously Hearts and Aberdeen, but also for Hearts and Hibs, Graham.
Shambles. Absolute shambles. But it's disappointing. I mean, I get why they show Celtic Rangers all the 4 games. That's understandable. But a derby there that you could easily show all the games. I know that sometimes are not the best of games, but it's still a big event. And for me, it's an absolute shambles that it's not getting shown. To be honest, given the way things are going just now, I think I'd rather go and watch Beyonce than watch Hearts, to be honest, right now. But it's not the point. It should be on TV. And it's been changed to half kickoff again. It's not going to make a lot of difference because you'll still get a massive full house there. And again, probably depending on how it goes, I think Hearts will lose to Celtic after the split. That's just guaranteed. Probably not beat Rangers at Ibrox, but you never know. Then St Mirren away. I don't know how they play. They've got Hibs up. Potential.
Yeah, Hibs at home.
Winning a point there, but that Hearts Aberdeen game could be huge. Yeah, I thought that. Then it's the Hearts. There could potentially be a massive game. And the fact that that's not going to be on TV is an absolute, again, the Sky really don't cover themselves in glory. And again, I've talked about this numerous times. And you said this as well, Michael, as well. Some of the pundits they have on Sky are just horrendous. I mean, it's the same folk every week and they don't offer any insight. Yeah. We could do a better job than we don't get paid for it, but honestly, it's a shambles. Yeah. But yeah, I do think they don't do enough to highlight the Scottish game.
Yeah, you sum it up there really well, Graham, because when that...
On you go, Robbie.
when Callum Davidson was sacked during a live Sky coverage, it was such basic, and I don't want to slag, because at least they are showing some Scottish football, but such basic answers and didn't really look at the real problems that had been going on at St Johnstone and exactly why St Johnstone were axing the manager. So yeah, having like Boyd and McFadden every week, it's a bit samey and should really mix up a wee bit.
I like it. Why? I like it when
this
Graham
is the thing
says
as well.
I like it when Graham says, I'm not going to mention.
I was going to say.
Oh, I think there's a bit of a delay, Graham, on the line as well. Yeah, no. Yeah. I was just going to say, I love it when Robbie mentioned that the pundits' names, and Graham says, I'm not going to mention the pundits' names. So well done,
I done his
Robbie.
job for him.
Yeah, well done. We've got an interesting comment from Paul Watson on Facebook. Thanks for commenting, Paul. And he was wondering why the Kilmarnock Ross County game and all the other bottom six games are not on the TV. So I'm not going to answer that one because I might get into a bit of bother when I say that. So I'll hand over to Robbie on this one.
Yeah, no, I do totally empathise with all these fans who would love to see, like, it's more exciting, other than the European race for third in the 5 million potential windfall, you've got to say down at the bottom is where it's at and probably where the most excitement is going to be post-split. So I just think it is, Graham used the word madness, and I think that does sum it up why there's no games down at the bottom. Dundee United taking 3,000 to St Johnstone, for example. Surely the story of that's a local derby and Jim Goodwin's got Dundee United from the doldrums, 3 wins on the up. That would be a good story to show. And Ross County, Kilmarnock, the exact same. 2 teams who've been struggling for form. Kilmarnock obviously got a really important win against Mirren last time. And I really think the TV cameras should start to show games that are not just predictable ones. Because I think I've seen a St Mirren fan say on Twitter that it's been years since the cameras had been at the Smizer Stadium for a non-Celtic or Rangers game. So it just shows exactly where the priorities are at, because they haven't been included despite making the top 6. St Mirren are also not involved in any of the post-split TV fixtures, which is pretty mad. You'd think they would be a bit more creative, whoever is behind the scenes at Sky. I'm probably jeopardising any chance of a job over at Sky, what I'm saying here, but I just think they need to be more creative and look at the storylines and narrative with some of these other games rather than just the predictable ones.
It's okay, Robbie. I've talked myself out of a job weeks ago on Sky, but there you go. So let's move on to the championship now, because I think I think me and Robbie and Graham can take over the Scottish Cup weekend and just talk about the TV coverage. It's awful, but we'll come back to that one sunny day. Let's move into the championship then. Game tonight, Robbie, Dundee against Cove Rangers.
Yeah, absolute huge game for both teams in different ways, really, because Dundee, they just need to get that win, really, to get their hands on the championship title and bounce back into Premiership. And for Paul Hartley's Cove, it's just not been the way he would have wanted since he took over for the second time at the Balmoral Stadium side. And he says they're confident, despite an injury crisis, that they can get a win at Dens Park tonight. But if Cove don't, yeah, they've got a game in hand with 2 games to go. But I really think they're doomed in a sense, that they're probably one of these teams that are ahead of schedule in what they was meant to do in this journey. And for a while, that's the thing, they was holding their own quite well. And then obviously a change of management has led to them falling in a bit of a scrap with Arbroath and Hamilton. And I think that the other 2 teams probably have too much. And then you look at Dundee, I think they've got the quality and a good manager in Gary Bowyer, who quite rightly, who take a club of that size back into the top flight.
Graham, how many times do we see an ex-player or an ex-manager going back to the old club and beating them? In this case, Paul Hartley is going back to his former club tonight, but I don't see any upset.
I am not going to sit on the fence, and I'm going to say this now, and you can write it down, you put it on paper, wherever you want. The title will be decided this because Dundee will beat Cove Rangers probably quite comfortably, and I think Moore will beat Queen's Park tomorrow, and the title's done. Now, I would prefer, as a neutral, to see the title decided next week, Queen's Park Dundee, but I don't think I'll get to that stage. I think Dundee win the title this weekend. Queen's Park I've been talking about Queen's Park all season, saying they want them to come up. They still could through the playoff, because I said I genuinely don't think it's in the top of the championship in the Premier League, but I just have a feeling that this weekend Dundee will win the title. I just think I'm a massive fan of Paul Hartley, been at Hearts. He was a brilliant player, but sometimes really good players don't make good managers. Just look at Frank Lampard at Chelsea. Absolutely horrendous. That guy's no won a game since he came back. But these Snipper, unfortunately, I would love to see Cove Rangers stand up. But I think Robbie's right. I think they're doomed. I think they're down. They just don't win enough games. They don't score enough goals. And the one thing is and I have a feeling that they might concede a few tonight.
Yeah, the goal difference is the worst in the championship as well. So as you say, it doesn't do them any hope at all.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that game kicks off at quarter to 8 tonight, and that kicks off the championship action. Is there only 2 games left? Is that right for the championship?
Yeah, two games
this
left.
Weekend and the next weekend,
and then the playoffs after that. So Queen's Park, Inverness, and Partick in the playoff spots, but Ayr and Morton are only 2 points and 1 point behind. So it's really anyone's game to sneak in that 4th spot, really.
Yeah. Let's just run through the games then before we speak about them. Ayr United, Robbie's second team. Ayr United against Raith Rovers. I don't know if Robbie was smiling there, or maybe a bit annoyed at me how I said Ayr United is the second team.
But they,
Morton against Queen's Park and Packet Thistle against Arbroath. Packet Thistle is my favourite skill to make the playoffs, Robbie. I don't know what you think of that one. We'll come back to that one in a minute. But Graham, what do you think of Ayr United against Raith Rovers tomorrow?
Like I said last week, that really Raith Rovers are the only team that don't have anything to play for. You know, they're pretty much, their season's done. So, something to play for, they'll probably win the game. I think Raith, and I've said again numerous times, I'm a massive fan of Ash. Brilliant play for United. Again, I don't think he'll be there next season. I think he's too good for that league. But I think Ayr have had a really good, fair play to Lee Bullen's done a very good job. And, Raith have been okay this season, but probably disappointed they've not really managed to get into that playoff place. But I just have a feeling that Ayr will win this because they've got something to play for. As I say, Raith are on the beach. Their season's done. They got beat last week, had 2 men sent off. I think now it's just a case of wait for the season to finish and go on holiday.
Yep. You know how I was speaking to Tony Haggerty, Robbie, about the gap between Celtic and Rangers. Now I think there's a bit of a gap between my connection and Graham's connection tonight because
Glasgow and Edinburgh, not in the same wavelength.
No, exactly. What do you think of? As I say, what do you think of that game, Ayr United? Tomorrow against Raith Rovers. Are you going to the game, Robbie? No.
I'd love to go to the game, but I'm working tomorrow, so I won't make the game. But for the whole town of Ayr, as someone that has lived in Ayr for 3 years, local team, they've been selling strips and tickets basically across the road from my house all week. So you've seen that buzz that in the air that they know it can be in their hands in a sense. If they win that game, they can possibly get a playoff spot. So with Raith, as Graham says, on the beach, they've lost 4 of the last 5 games, Raith. And despite, I thought, when I've seen them a couple of times this season, looking all right, I think they're just kind of, not down tools, but when you've not got anything to play for, it's easy to get complacent. It's been frustrating, I guess, for Ayr because three draws in a row, and a few times it's been games where they've created enough chances to win, but they're not converting. But when you've got guys like Deepo Akinyemi in your team, then you always know you've got a chance of scoring and maybe winning. So I do fancy Ayr to win tomorrow, and if they can, it gives them the best opportunity to going into the final day being among that playoff spots. But it's quite exciting when you know there's 4 teams perhaps that could all sneak into that 1 or 2 places.
I told you there was a bit of a gap between Glasgow and Edinburgh because Graham has just fell at the last fence of the Grand National. Robbie, looking at the Morton Queen's Park game, I don't know about you, but I mean, you wouldn't be surprised if there was an upset in this game because Morton has been doing well over the past, I was going to say past few months, but maybe all season.
Yeah, I think Morton maybe at the start of the season would have been, I guess you would have, depends how you look at it, because so many teams are, other than Dundee, who I thought would probably go back straight up, Morton was one that I thought might be down there in that relegation area, but they have proved a lot of doubters wrong. They're unbeaten in the last 4 games, and Queen's Park have lost 3 of the last 5 games. So if you look at that statistically, despite Queen's Park being 1 point off top, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Morton go and get that win. And I think I was really wanting Queen's Park to get promoted because it was just something different. As football fans, you like that underdog story. I think they've built a good basis behind the scenes and a lot of youngsters coming through. But I think this season's just derailed and it's just kind of caught up with them. It might come back to bite me and they'll still win the league now, but I think they will have to negotiate the playoffs and I don't fancy them to go up from there now. I think they've probably, a bit like Arbroath last season, ran out of steam just at the last hurdle.
Yep. No, that's what I was going to say to you, Robbie, before Graham comes back in, before we lose Graham again. But what I was saying to Graham in the past couple of weeks on the show as well is Queen's Park Forum this season have reminded you about Arbroath, even though Arbroath make the playoffs and kind of fell away. But to be honest, they fell away before the playoffs as well. And maybe that's what you get with a part-time team. And maybe you would associate them the Forum with Queen's Park. Would you say so?
Yeah, it's quite funny that I drew that correlation as well, just there saying, a bit like Arbroath, and you've previously mentioned it on the show, because that's just what I've thought all season. It's like, it's good to have that fairy tale. Like down in England, Wrexham's just captivated everyone this season. Last year in Scotland, it was Arbroath. And this season, I know some people are not for Queen's Park and with a tin pot new stadium and things like that. People have reservations. But for me, I thought it would be quite refreshing to see a team like that go up. And especially they've got a good manager in Owen Cowell as well. But say losing key player to Ross County in January probably hasn't helped. And being part-time and but I think you look at the difference. They came up with Cove. It's total contrast. Cove is struggling, like they go back down. Even if they don't go up this season, Queen's Park, we can still see it as a very successful campaign, to be honest.
Graham, I don't know if you heard me and Robbie talking about the gap between Rangers and Celtic earlier on. I'm going to repeat the thing because maybe Graham never heard me. But also there was a gap between me and you, your connection. But I'm happy to say that maybe the gap's been shut a wee bit. Can you still hear us?
Who said that? Yeah, I can hear you. I'm on my phone now, so it's fine. I'm on my phone. It works better on my phone for some reason. I don't know why.
Ah, right, okay. The dog and bones always good. Anyway, so more. We were just talking about Morton and Queen's Park, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the banging the drum for Queen's Park all season. I would love them to come up. I still think there is a chance they can come up through the playoff, but I do feel they've kind of ran out of legs. They put so much into the season, like our Brook did last season. And again, I'm a massive fan of Dick Campbell, and I hope they stay up as well, Arbroath. But I just think, as I said, this is the weekend. I think the title's done. I would love it to go to the last day, and for it to be played at Oakerview, and for it to be a winner take all. But I just have this feeling that Dundee will hammer Cove tonight, and I've just got a feeling that Morton might take something off of Queen's Park tomorrow. But do you know what? Whatever happens, it's been a great season for Queen's Park. And what Robbie said there about like a lot of folk have not been wanting Queen's Park to come up, I've heard that as well. A lot of pundits I've heard don't want Queen's Park to come up, and I think I kind of liken it a bit, maybe a little bit differently to the Gretna thing, because Gretna were bankrolled by one person. This isn't the same kind of thing, but I think, honestly, I would love it to happen. I really would. And I do think, I've said this before as well, I think Queen's Park, if they came up, I don't think they go straight back down. I think they would hold their own. And again, this is why I want to ask Robbie as well, because I've mentioned this as well. Robbie, do you think there is much of a gap between the top of the Championship and the bottom of that Premier League? Because I generally don't think there is.
No, I don't think there is either. But I think similar to the bottom of the Championship and start of League One, I don't think there's much between a lot of the teams in the Scottish Pyramid, other than the Glasgow pair that dominate Scottish football. You look at if either one of Dundee, Queen's Park, Inverness, Partick or Ayr came up next season, and obviously is that financial reward as well with going up, and you likely have increased attendances, etc. Yeah, I wouldn't say. Yeah, obviously probably Bookie's favourite to go back down, but you wouldn't be surprised. You've seen for so long Hamilton held their own in the top flight, and you wouldn't have expected it. Livingston, a very small club, not biggest of fan bases, they seem to have. So that's twice now they've just narrowly missed it on top six, and they've probably been one of the lowest budgets in the league. So yeah, I actually would probably agree with you that they'd been a scrap, but they wouldn't go down without a fight if that was going to be the case in the top flight, because there is very little between these sides, and you put a battle royale with the top 5 teams in the Championship and the bottom 5 from the Premiership, and I think it'd be quite close results.
Okay, let's move on to the last game tomorrow. Packet Thistle against Arbroath, Graham. I still fancy Packet Thistle to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and again, we talked about this before as well. You look at that part of performance against Rangers in the Scottish Cup, and they were outstanding. They really were. And then nobody expected Ian McCall to get sacked. That was a real shock. And then, to be fair to Chris Doolan, he's done a fantastic job, and I think they will be in the playoff. And again, Queen's Park are a good side. I think they're a very good side. They try and play decent football. And I kind of think, as I've mentioned this a few times before, but I think, see if you have a manager that was a defensive-minded player, I think you'll get defensive-minded football, i.e. Robin Nielsen, for example. You bring in a manager that was a striker, Stephen Naismith, Chris Doolan, you're going to get attacking football. That's just a philosophy they have. And I think Partick have done that. They're a very good side to watch. They do try and play good football. They've got decent players there. And I do think they probably will beat Arbroath tomorrow. But as I say, I want Arbroath to stay up because I really like Dick Campbell. I think he's a really, really likeable character, and he's been around for a long, long time. But I do think that Partick will probably be a bit too strong. But there's been some strange results this season. There has, because I think weeks ago, when we were doing the show on the Friday, and it was Queen's Park against Arbroath, and I said Queen's Park will win that game comfortably, and Arbroath won. So, shocks can happen, but I don't think it'll be tonight. I don't think it'll be tomorrow. I think Partick will just have a little bit too much for Arbroath.
Robbie, what's your take on the game at Firhill?
Yeah, I don't know, I've got a soft spot for Partick. Sometimes if Aberdeen's not playing, me and my dad, if he's down, we'll go watch Partick. So I would like them also to probably get the playoffs. And looking at the season so far, they've got the tied most goals in the division alongside Dundee. So scoring goals isn't a problem for them. Whereas Arbroath's got the worst goals scored in the season. So you'd expect Partick to go and defeat Arbroath, like Graham, I think the Campbell brothers are very likeable people, so I'd like to see them stay up and avoid the playoffs. But yeah, I think Chris Doolan, it did shock me. I was baffled. I think everyone on the sports desk that night, after covering the Rangers Partick Thistle game when they more than matched Rangers Partick, and then Ian McCall got the done. But I think that had been maybe something stirring in the background prior to that, and regardless of the result, that outcome was made. But Chris Doolan's came in and had a really good impact, and he's 2 wins and 2 draws in the last 4 games. And if they can, because what happens is if Ayr win the game tomorrow and Partick win the game tomorrow, it puts so much on the last day of the season, because there's only got to be 1 point between those teams going into try to get that final spot on the last day. So ultimately, it's just making for exciting viewing. And to be honest, I know we get the Friday night championship game, but I'd like to see more championship football sometimes, because there can be good spectacles as well, and proper, no VAR, proper Manny's Fitba, which I like to see.
Yeah, no, I think the BBC has got the rights of the playoffs as well. I'm sure I saw that a few weeks ago as well. Yeah, but Robbie's right. Then when the season finishes, okay, you'll miss your team Hearts and Aberdeen and all that, but you'll miss the Friday night football.
To be honest, if Hearts finish 4th, I won't miss it at all. If we finish 3rd, I probably will. But yeah, I've said for weeks and months, the Championship is one of the most competitive leagues in Scotland by none. It's a brilliant league. And this is again why I've said numerous times, and I will keep banging the drum about this, I really wish that Neil Doncaster and the SPL had the foresight to actually expand the league to an 18-team league and bring some of these teams up, because it's an absolute joke that it's still a 12-team league. I honestly get bored of playing the same teams 4 times a season, 5 times a season, potentially 6 if you get cup draws as well. They should. I said this at the time as well. When COVID struck, they had the chance then to go, you know what? It's an unprecedented season. We're going to expand the league, and they didn't do it. They let teams have a vote. They were always going to vote for themselves. That was always going to happen. They had the chance to say, right, we're going to do something different here. We're going to expand the league, and they didn't do it. And I think they should have done that. Make it an 18-team league and bring some of these teams in and make it more, obviously Celtic Rangers will run away with the league anyway, but make it more competitive. Because I honestly think that if you brought a Dundee, Queen's Park, Partick, Morton, whoever up, they'd more than hold their own. Because a lot of these teams are probably better than half of the teams in this league. And they didn't expand it when they should have done. And it always irks me that they didn't do that at the time.
I know what Graham's saying, Robbie, but if you're going to extend the league to 18-team league, that's still not going to look sexy to Sky.
I don't know, but I think we should be probably trying to figure out our own TV deals or ways. Like, I know there's a lot of subscription-based stuff and pay-per-view stuff, but I've been a strong advocate as well. I've said this for years on years, that it needs to be an expanded league, because even though I'm a big Aberdeen fan, obviously work kind of gets in the way of going to as much games, but sometimes it's purely, I understand why there's only 14,000 at Pittodrie for a, say, Kilmarnock at home, because you feel like you play them so often, whereas if you had an expanded league playing everyone twice rather than 3 times, and obviously we were speaking about Falkirk earlier, I think Falkirk, sleeping giant, taking nearly 9,000 to Hampden, 6,000, I think 5,000 crowds to get at the Falkirk Stadium. You've got Dunfermline, who's just been promoted, massive club as well in Scottish football standards. There's a lot of teams that have got that fan bases that could be contribute to that spectacle of Scottish football, and goes back to what I said with that bottom 6 games not being shown. Is that goes right through Scottish football. If you don't market things properly, and Neil Doncaster and co, we're never going to shine the light on Scottish football the way it should be, because I don't think it's all doom and gloom and as bad as people make it out to be. I think there's a lot to cheer about and a lot of good things and competitiveness in our game. We just don't really see it highlighted enough.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for joining me tonight. It's been a busy show as always. Thanks to Robbie, thanks to Graham, thanks to Tony Haggerty, thanks to Aaron Falkirk fans from joining us tonight. Don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock after the Falkirk Inverness game, and Sunday 3:30 after the big game at Hampden between Celtic and Rangers. So thanks for your comments. Enjoy your night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 3 o'clock here on Indie Live Radio and Independence Live.